Sorry, this table's for family only, my brother smirked, pointing toward a fold-out chair by the trash can. Everyone laughed as I sat alone. Then the bill arrived, $4,000. The waiter looked at me. I just smiled and said, not my table. I've always known my family saw me differently. Not the way parents are supposed to look at their daughter, with pride, warmth, or even mild affection. No, with my family, it was more like inconvenience. My brother, Ethan, was the golden one. Always had been. The charming son with the easy smile, the successful one who could do no wrong, even when he did everything wrong. And then there was me, the daughter who moved out early, who worked hard, who paid her own bills, who didn't ask for anything. You'd think being independent would earn some respect. But in my family, it just made me less useful. The day it all happened started like any other. A random Thursday. I was at work when my phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Ethan, hey, big dinner this weekend. Mom and Dad's 40th anniversary. Fancy place. 7 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. That was it. No, please no, would you like to come? Not even a location until I asked. I read the message 3 times, debating whether to even go. My parents' 40th anniversary. That should have been something special, right? But the truth is, I wasn't sure I even belonged there. Still, I told myself, maybe this time will be different. Maybe I was finally overthinking. Maybe this would be the night they remembered I was part of the family too. So I said yes. The restaurant was one of those upscale, candlelit places where the waiters wear suits and the menu doesn't have prices, always a bad sign for your wallet. I wore a simple black dress, curled my hair, and even bought a little gift, a framed photo of Mom and Dad from their wedding day. I thought it would be a sweet gesture. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw all their cars already there. Figures I was right on time, but they were early, probably wanting to get settled before I arrived. Inside, I spotted them immediately. My parents, Ethan, his wife Bree, and their 2 teenage kids, all gathered around a long table near the window. The laughter was loud enough to carry across the room. I smiled and waved, but when I got closer, something felt off. There were 6 chairs at the table. I counted again. Mom, Dad, Ethan, Bree, the kids, 6 people. I was the 7th. No chair. I stopped beside the table, forcing a smile. Hey, everyone. They all turned toward me. Ethan leaned back, that smug grin already plastered across his face. Oh hey, you made it, he said, like it was a surprise I'd show up. Mom gave a distracted smile, waving toward a corner. There's a chair for you over there, sweetie. I followed her hand and my stomach dropped. Near the back wall, by the trash station where servers dropped dirty plates, was a fold-out metal chair and a tiny circular table barely big enough for one person. A waiter's side table. I blinked, certain it was a mistake. Wait, what? Ethan chuckled, exchanging a look with his wife. Sorry, this table's for family only. The words hung in the air. Everyone, even my parents, laughed. It was one of those tight, polite laughs at first, and then the kind that cuts. Heat rushed to my face. You're kidding, right? But Ethan just smirked. Hey, you didn't RSVP properly. I told them 6. You can still sit right there. He pointed toward the fold-out chair again. Best seat in the house, next to the kitchen. Maybe you can help out when they get busy. The table erupted in laughter. Even Mom chuckled behind her napkin. I stood there frozen. The waiter looked at me uncertainly, clearly uncomfortable but unsure what to do. I swallowed hard, forcing a small smile. Right. Of course. I walked over, heels clicking against the marble floor, every step echoing like a spotlight on my humiliation. When I sat down, I could still hear them laughing softer now, but enough to make my eyes sting. For the next 2 hours, I sat alone. They talked loudly, ordered wine after wine, clinked glasses, shared jokes I couldn't hear, and barely looked my way. Every now and then, Mom would wave her hand vaguely in my direction like she was signaling I was fine. The waiter came over once, pity in his eyes. Ma'am, would you like to move to the bar instead? I shook my head. No, it's fine. This is perfect. Inside, though, I was breaking. Because this wasn't new. It was just the latest version of the same old story. Growing up, Ethan had always been the one. He got the bigger bedroom, the new bike, the car when he turned 16. I got hand-me-downs and we'll see if there's money left. When I graduated college, they skipped my ceremony for his son's soccer game. When I got promoted, my mom called to tell me Ethan was buying a boat. And yet somehow, I was the one always trying to bridge the gap, sending gifts, visiting on holidays, pretending we were a real family. Sitting there by the trash cans, I realized how stupid that was. How much of my life I'd wasted waiting to be treated like I mattered. At one point, Ethan raised his glass and called across the restaurant, "You good over there, sis?" I smiled tightly. Never better. He grinned. Good, because this night's gonna cost me a fortune. More laughter. I took a slow sip of my water and thought, no, Ethan. It's going to cost you more than you think. I didn't know how or when, but I could feel something shifting inside me. For the first time, I wasn't just swallowing the hurt. I was memorizing every detail, every word, every smirk. Because deep down I knew there was going to be a reckoning. And when it came, it would be quiet, calm, and absolutely unforgettable. By the time the appetizers arrived, the humiliation had sunk in deep enough that I could almost taste it. Every clink of their wine glasses, every laugh that drifted my way, every sideways glance from another diner, it all pressed down like a weight on my chest. I stared at the small bread roll on my plate, the only thing I dared to order. It looked lonely. Kind of like me. From where I sat, I could see the full table. Mom's hand resting on Dad's arm, Ethan cracking jokes, Bree pretending to giggle, the kids rolling their eyes, but smiling anyway. It should have been a family moment, full of warmth, nostalgia, love. Instead, it looked like a play I wasn't cast in. At some point, Mom looked up and noticed I hadn't eaten much. "Sweetheart, aren't you hungry?" she asked, almost like she cared. I smiled faintly. "I'm fine, Mom." Ethan leaned over, his voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. "She's watching her figure, Mom. You know how independent career women are, can't let carbs ruin their Instagram photos." The table laughed again. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. I wanted to stand up, to scream, to throw something. But I didn't. I just smiled. Because part of me knew, losing my temper was exactly what they wanted. They wanted a reaction. Proof that I was too sensitive, too dramatic, the one who always makes things about herself. So I let them talk. I let them laugh. And I took another sip of water, the ice clinking softly against the glass like a slow metronome counting down to something I couldn't quite see yet. Halfway through the night, the waiter came over and asked if I wanted to move to their table now that another couple had left. Before I could answer, Ethan waved him off. "No, she's fine where she is." Then, turning to me, he added, "Hey sis, don't take it personally. You've always liked your space. This way, you can get all the attention you crave." That one stung. I felt every pair of eyes at that table flick toward me, my parents' awkward smiles, Bree's fake sympathy, the kids' snickers. The waiter hesitated, gave me a small apologetic nod, and walked away. I wanted to disappear. But something inside me, small, quiet, stubborn, whispered, "Don't you dare." When the main courses came, the smell alone was dizzying. Steak, lobster tails, buttered asparagus, champagne bottles popping. Ethan had gone all out. He was performing loud, charming, generous, the perfect son hosting the perfect dinner. "Only the best for my parents," he declared. 40 years of putting up with each other deserves a feast. Mom blushed. Dad chuckled. And all I could think about was the irony. Because the same man bragging about family didn't even think I was worthy of a seat at the table. Still, I sat there. I clapped when they toasted. I smiled when they cut into the cake. I even took a picture when they leaned in for their anniversary kiss. From a distance, it looked beautiful. From my corner, it felt hollow. When dessert came, Ethan turned to his wife and said loudly, "Can you believe she actually showed up this time?" I blinked. "This time?" He shrugged, pretending to look innocent. "Well, you usually find an excuse, right? Too busy, too tired, too, whatever." Mom laughed softly. "He's right, honey. You have missed a lot of family stuff." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess I have." Then I smiled, but not the kind of smile they were used to seeing. Inside, something had shifted. I was done proving I belonged. Done chasing the scraps of love they threw my way. If they wanted to see me as an outsider, I'd let them. Because outsiders can walk away. And when you're not part of their table, you're not part of their bill, either. The night dragged on. They ordered another round of champagne. Laughter grew louder. Bree complained about the waiter being slow, and Ethan called the manager over just to show he could. I watched the performance like someone who'd already read the ending. At some point, the waiter placed a small plate in front of me, a slice of chocolate cake unasked for. "Compliments of the chef," he said softly. "He didn't like how they seated you." I blinked back sudden tears. "Thank you." He gave me a kind smile before walking away. That tiny act of kindness from a stranger felt more genuine than anything I'd gotten from my own family all night. When the laughter finally died down and the plates were cleared, I saw the waiter approaching again. He was holding a small black folder, the kind that only ever means one thing. The bill. I watched as he stopped by their table, glancing down at the receipt. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Ethan's group. "All right," he said politely. "Here's your total." Ethan grinned, waving it off. "Give it to my sister. She's the responsible one." And they laughed again. But this time, I didn't flinch. Because that quiet voice inside me, the one that had been whispering all night, finally spoke clearly. This is it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. And I wasn't going to waste it. I sat back, calm, collected, watching the waiter's hand as he placed the $4,000 bill right in front of me. Everyone at the table went silent, expectant. Ethan leaned back in his chair, smirking. Don't worry, sis. You make good money, right? Consider it your contribution to the family. I looked down at the bill, then up at him. For the first time all night, I smiled, not the fake, polite one I'd worn since walking in. A real one. One that said, you have no idea what's coming next. The waiter stood there, awkwardly holding the leather folder, eyes darting between me and my brother. It was one of those moments where time slows down, like the whole restaurant was watching, waiting to see what I'd do. I looked at Ethan, lounging in his chair like a king, swirling the last of his champagne. Mom was smiling nervously, and Dad just looked uncomfortable. He always hated confrontation, especially when it involved his golden boy. I took a deep breath, straightened my back, and asked softly, you said this is my contribution, right? Ethan smirked. That's what family does. We all pitch in. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Interesting. Because earlier tonight, I was told this table was for family only. That wiped the smirk right off his face. A hush fell over the table. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. I leaned back, crossed my legs, and smiled, the kind of slow, calm smile that comes from knowing you've finally had enough. Then I looked up at the waiter and said clearly, not my table. For a second, no one said anything. The waiter blinked. I'm sorry. I repeated gently, but with steel in my tone. I said, not my table. You should give the bill to whoever's name is on the reservation. The waiter looked confused. It's under Mr. Ethan Wells. I nodded, still smiling. Then that's your man. The silence that followed was glorious. Ethan's jaw dropped. Bree's fake smile froze. Excuse me, he sputtered. You're really not going to pay for any of this? I raised an eyebrow. Why would I? I wasn't even invited to sit with the family. Remember? Mom frowned. Honey, don't make a scene. I turned to her, my voice calm but firm. A scene? You all laughed when I was humiliated in front of strangers. You thought it was funny to treat me like the help. And now that the bill's here, suddenly I'm family again. Dad rubbed his temples. This isn't the time. Actually, I cut in, it's the perfect time. I stood up slowly. Every motion deliberate. Controlled. Half the restaurant was watching now, forks frozen midair. You know what, Ethan? You've always wanted to play the big man. You wanted everyone to see how successful you are, how you take care of everyone. So here's your moment. Pay the bill. Ethan's face turned red. Are you insane? For $1,000. I gave him a mock sympathetic look. Then maybe next time, don't order 5 bottles of champagne just to show off. Bree shifted uncomfortably. We thought you'd chip in. You know, since I what? I snapped. Since I actually work for my money? Since I've been paying Mom and Dad's bills while you brag about your business ventures that never make a dime? Mom gasped. That's enough. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I turned to her, my voice trembling, not from anger, but from years of swallowed hurt. You raised me to believe family takes care of each other. I believe that. That's why I helped pay your mortgage. Why I covered your hospital bills when Dad was sick. Why I always said yes, even when it hurt. My eyes flicked to Ethan. And what did I get in return? Mocked. Dismissed. Told I don't belong. I let that hang in the air. They didn't have a single thing to say. So I smiled one last time, reached into my purse, and pulled out 2 crisp bills, a 20 and a 10. I placed them gently on the table. That should cover my water and the slice of cake the chef gave me. Then I turned to the waiter. Thank you for your kindness tonight. You've been wonderful. He nodded, looking like he was holding back a grin. As I grabbed my coat, Ethan finally exploded. You're so dramatic. You think walking away makes you better than us. I turned at the doorway, meeting his glare. No, Ethan. It just makes me free. Then I walked out. Head high. Heart pounding. But for the first time in years light. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I felt this wave of peace. Behind me, through the restaurant window, I saw chaos breaking out, Ethan arguing with the waiter, Mom trying to calm him down, Bree looking mortified. For once, it wasn't my problem. I took one last look at them, shook my head, and whispered to myself. Not my table. Not my problem. Not my guilt. Then I walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, smile widening with every step. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I was walking towards something, not away from it. When I got home that night, the silence felt different. It wasn't empty, it was peaceful. I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on the couch, staring out the window. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel that constant ache in my chest, that tightness that always came with family gatherings. No guilt. No pretending. Just stillness. I scrolled through my phone, half expecting to see messages from my mom or Ethan, but there was nothing. Not one text. Not one call. And honestly, I didn't mind. But the next morning, that peace shattered. My phone lit up with notifications, 16 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and 1 furious group text. I sighed, took a deep breath, and hit play on the first voicemail. It was my mom. Her voice sharp, clipped, the same tone she used when she was angry, but pretending not to be. Claire, what on earth were you thinking last night? You embarrassed your brother in front of everyone. He had to pay the entire bill. That was your father's anniversary dinner. How could you be so selfish? Selfish. That word hit harder than I wanted to admit. I deleted the message and played the next one. Dad's voice this time softer. Tired. Sweetheart, your mom's just upset. You know how she is. But maybe next time, you could have handled it differently. Ethan's going through a rough patch, and that dinner, it meant a lot to them. I closed my eyes. There it was again, the pattern. Ethan acts out, and somehow, I'm the one expected to fix it. I didn't even bother listening to the last voicemail. Then the text messages started flooding in. Mom, you made your brother look like a fool. Ethan, you think you're better than us? Wait till people hear about what you did. Bree, that waiter told everyone you refused to pay. People are talking, Claire. Do you even care how that looks? I laughed. Out loud. It wasn't funny, not really. But the absurdity of it all hit me like a slap and a sigh at the same time. They humiliated me in public. And yet, somehow, I was the villain for not footing their $4,000 ego trip. A few hours later, Dad showed up at my apartment. I could tell he'd come straight from work, shirt wrinkled, tie loose, that familiar look of exhaustion in his eyes. He didn't even knock twice. Can I come in? I hesitated, then nodded. He stood there in my living room, rubbing the back of his neck. Your mom's pretty upset, he said finally. Ethan's fuming. Said you embarrassed him in front of his colleagues. I crossed my arms. Did he tell you what he said to me? How he made me sit alone like a stranger? Dad sighed. He was joking, Claire. You know how your brother is. I stared at him. Yeah, Dad. I know exactly how he is. And you've been making excuses for him my whole life. That made him look away. I stepped closer. You want to talk about embarrassment? Try being your daughter and realizing your family only values you for what you can give them. He didn't respond. Just stood there, guilt written all over his face. Finally, he said quietly, you know we love you, right? I nodded slowly. I know you say you do. After he left, I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Ethan. Since you like to make statements, here's one for you. Mom and Dad decided to take you off the family vacation plans. You're on your own this year. I stared at it, then smiled. Perfect. I deleted the message, turned my phone off, and opened my laptop. Because if I was going to be on my own, I might as well do it right. I booked a solo trip to Greece, a place I'd always dreamed of going, but never had the time or nerve to visit. For once, I wasn't running from something. I was running toward peace. That night, I got one final text from the waiter. Apparently, he'd found me through my work website. It said, Hi, this might sound strange, but I just wanted to say I admired how you handled yourself last night. Most people would have screamed or cried. You were calm, strong. It was inspiring. I read it twice, smiling softly. Someone saw me. Not as a joke. Not as a burden. Not as the lesser sibling. Just me. That was the night I realized something important. You can love your family and still choose yourself. You can walk away from blood and still have peace. Because sometimes, family isn't who shares your name, it's who respects your worth. And if I had to sit at a table alone to finally learn that, then I'd gladly do it again.